Revealed. The amazing secret behind my new home and the touching plot my daughter-in-law exposed. Marjorie's heart raced as she clutched the letter in her trembling hands. The words inheritance and old house leapt off the page like fireflies on a summer night. Her late husband's best friend left her this rundown relic, a chance at a fresh start, a way out from under the judgmental whispers of the town. Could this really be their salvation? Yet, alongside the thrill was a heavy weight of worry. What if it was just a burden dressed as a blessing? As she stepped through the creaking door, it hit her, the musty smell, the faded wallpaper, the silence echoing with memories. Each cracked floorboard seemed to sigh, reminding her of the past. The walls held stories of laughter and remorse, dreams lost and hopes restored. She could almost hear her husband's voice whispering encouragement into her ear, urging her to see beyond what was crumbling. And yet, the sight of the sagging roof and peeling paint brought tears to her eyes, rendering the grand vision she imagined into heavy-hearted reality. Days turned into nights as Marjorie juggled long hours at the diner and cleaning offices on the weekends, trying to hold everything together. The weight of being a single parent bore down on her shoulders as she cooked meals and tucked her kids into bed, all the while wondering if she could pull it off. Then came Sarah, her bright-eyed daughter-in-law, who immediately threw herself into the adventure. Let us find out about this house's history, Marjorie. Who knows what we might uncover? Her enthusiasm was contagious, igniting a small flicker of hope in Marjorie's heart. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As weeks passed, Sarah's research peeled back layers of history that seemed forgotten. She uncovered tales of veterans who once made the house their home, just as Marjorie had made it hers. These men held dreams deferred, dreams that mirrored her own. With each revelation, Sarah felt their stories intertwining with Marjorie's journey, forming an emotional tapestry richer than she ever anticipated. Yet, with the digging came the curious stares and murmurs among the town's elite. Their whispers cut through the air, a sharp reminder of the judgment that stung already at Marjorie's back like a persistent wind. At the town hall meeting, it all came to a head. Marjorie stood, trembling but resolute, facing the skeptical glares of neighbors who had made her feel small. These walls, she said, voice breaking, hold the dreams of the people who lived here long before me. Would the community see the value in her fight? Or would they dismiss her struggles as mere nuisance? Amid the rising tide of emotions, a shocking revelation about the house emerged, shaking the very foundation of what they thought they knew. Hearts pounded, breaths hitched, and at that moment, Marjorie felt the flicker of hope struggle for light against the weight of judgment. Would she be able to reclaim not just the house, but her dignity and dreams as well? The answer loomed beyond the threshold of the unfolding drama, waiting to unfurl. The tension in the room was palpable. Marjorie could feel the pricking of eyes, heavy with skepticism, as the town's council members echoed muted murmurs. Yet, just as she braced herself for the sting of more opposition, Sarah shot her a determined look from the back of the room. It was the kind of look that said, "We'll get through this together." The mayor, a stern and imposing figure, cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "What we need to determine," he stated, glancing down at the documents in front of him, "is whether this property can be of benefit to the community or if it simply stands as a liability." He paused, eyeing Marjorie with a mixture of pity and judgment. "And right now it looks like a liability." Marjorie's heart sank. The words felt like weights dragging her down into an ocean of despair. But as she fought to steady her breathing, a surge of defiance welled up inside her. She wasn't just fighting for a house. She was fighting for her family, for their dignity, and for the dreams that lay trodden beneath the weight of narrow-mindedness. "Give me a chance," she pleaded, her voice firm yet edged with vulnerability. "Let us show you what this home can become. We can draw people in, make it a center for community events, a refuge for veterans." The audience was silent, the air thick with uncertainty. Marjorie could see the hesitation in some faces, their hearts wavering just for a moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, a hand shot up. "I think we should hear more about these veterans," said an older woman named Grace, who had lived in the town her whole life. "They fought for us. Many of them protected this very house during darker times. Perhaps it's time to honor their stories." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Marjorie squinted into the crowd, searching for support. "Yes, if we could host storytelling nights, art shows featuring their lives, we could bring our community together. This property could become a symbol of what we can achieve when we come together." The mayor shifted uncomfortably, caught between opposing interests. Yet, the inspiring ripple of hope in the room was palpable. For the first time, there were heads nodding, whispers of approval beginning to rise. Just as Marjorie began to feel light returning to her heart, a deep voice called from the back. "What about the vandalism? It's been years since this place saw anything but neglect." It was Greg, a prominent businessman known for his dismissive attitude. "You might have good intentions, but intentions alone won't save this house." His words stung. Marjorie felt her courage wavering. But before she could collect her thoughts, Sarah stepped forward. "But that's where the community comes in. We can band together, fix it, rebuild it, restore the heart of this town. We've seen it happen. Just look at what happened with the old library." A spark ignited among the audience. Faces brightened. Enthusiasm began to replace doubt. Marjorie felt a wave of emotion wash over her. Yes, this was about more than just a house. It was about reclaiming a piece of their past and breathing new life into it. Tears threatened to spill as she glanced at Sarah, grateful for her unwavering support. The council members began whispering among themselves, uncertainty flaring into something resembling hope. But before a vote could be called, one final voice silenced the room. "And what happens when the hardships get too tough?" It was Mary, a local shop owner with a tight grip on reality. "What if all this is foolishness? What if it fails?" Marjorie opened her mouth, the weight of the question resonating in her soul. What if it did fail? Would she have the strength to keep fighting? Questions hung heavy in the air, and as she reached deep within herself for a response, she couldn't help but wonder. Would this be a civil battle for their dreams, or the beginning of a fight against a community with deep-rooted fears? Would they find unity or division in their struggle? The uncertain silence stretched on, waiting for her voice to break through. Marjorie had never felt as exposed as she did in that moment. She glanced around the room, her heart pounding wildly against her ribcage. Every eye seemed to gauge her, weighing her resolve against the weight of their doubt. Silence filled the air, thick like fog, and the mere act of breathing became a challenge. With a deep breath, she centered herself. What if it fails? She echoed Mary's question, feeling the gravity of it. What if it does? But what if it doesn't? There was a spark in her words, a determination that surprised even her. What if this place becomes a beacon for our community? A space where stories of courage and resilience are shared? What if we reclaim our history, remind ourselves of who we are? The murmurs around the room swelled, a low tide of voices surging and retreating, catching onto the winds of her hope. She caught Sarah's gaze again, and it ignited her heart. It was a silent agreement between them that no matter what, they would face this journey together. The mayor cleared his throat again, seeming to wrestle with an invisible force tugging at his conscience. The truth is, he began hesitantly, a community is built on hope and courage. Perhaps we can consider a partnership. Marjorie blinked, her disbelief mingling with hope. A partnership? Yes, he said, leaning forward. You would need to formulate a plan, one that addresses the issues of vandalism, funding, and ongoing support. But if you can rally the community behind you, a partnership could work. Grace, the woman who had first raised her hand, stood up. I'd be willing to help coordinate events to bring awareness to our veterans. The stories they hold need to be told. Her words sparked a ripple of enthusiasm, and slowly, others began to rise: small store owners, teachers, families who had once abandoned the idea of this property. Marjorie felt a current of energy rush through her. She had envisioned moments like these of unity, of shared dreams. But this was more than she had hoped for. Together we can do this, she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. We can create something beautiful together. As discussions swirled, ideas evolved about potential art fairs, fundraisers, even history nights that would connect the past to the present through the veterans' experiences. Then a shadow fell over the excitement. A voice of caution from Greg again. It's all well and good to have ideas, but it takes more than just hopes and a few good intentions. You'll need solid backing. Will you get enough people on board? Marjorie squared her shoulders, feeling the challenge wrap around her. We have to try, she said, her voice stronger than before. What I see in this room are people who care about their community. We can harness that spirit. Now is the time to focus on the next steps. And as the meeting generated even more ideas, she felt the energy shift. But she couldn't shake a lingering concern. Beneath the surface of their excitement lay a current of fear. What if the council was only giving them lip service? What if when push came to shove, the support wouldn't be there? As hope churned with uncertainty, Marjorie stole a glance at Sarah, who nodded with fierce determination. It gave her strength, a reminder that they weren't alone. Just as the conversation swelled into a frenzy of possibilities, the mayor's voice cut through the euphoria. Let us vote on the idea of a community partnership, shall we? As hands began to rise, a sudden swirl of doubt washed over Marjorie. What if something unexpected happened? What if her dreams began to crumble right before her eyes? Would she have what it takes to rebuild again, even if the foundation was shaky? The vote was imminent, the outcome uncertain. And as she held her breath, she knew the real battle was just beginning. Would this fragile hope withstand the pressure of reality? The air hung heavy with anticipation as the hands of the room began to rise, each one representing a pulse of hope. Marjorie's heart raced, caught between exhilaration and fear. She dared to glance at the mayor, whose expression was unreadable. Could they really do this? So much hinged on the outcome of this vote. Let us do this, she whispered under her breath, willing the moment forward. Those in favor? The mayor's voice rang out, echoing against the walls, each syllable powerful yet fragile. One by one the hands went up, some tentative, others resolute. The murmurs in the crowd heightened her anxiety, and the seconds stretched out like an eternity. In that moment Marjorie felt as if the world had narrowed down to just the room, the faces before her, and the ticking of time. She crossed her fingers, silently wishing for the unity she had felt growing in this room to manifest tangibly. All right, the mayor said, lowering his gavel with a decisive thud. The motion passes. We are in favor of exploring a community partnership. A wave of cheers erupted, filling the air with an electric energy that surged through Marjorie, igniting the fire inside her. Joy spilled over and brushed against the edges of fear, and she found herself lifted up by the collective spirit of the room, hugging Sarah, who danced with elation. But as the applause echoed around her, a part of Marjorie remained grounded in reality. They had taken the first step. Yes, but many hurdles lined the path ahead. Vandalism, funding, and ongoing support were still looming on the horizon, and she could almost feel Greg's skepticism creeping in, whispering doubts that hung in the air like dust motes caught in sunlight. All right, team, Marjorie began, trying to infuse clarity into the excitement. We need to come up with a concrete plan. Grace, do you want to spearhead the event coordination? Grace nodded vigorously, her smile infectious, and Marjorie marveled at how quickly hope was turning into action. They began to break down the ideas from earlier, throwing out proposals and discussing logistics as a group. The energy buzzed, building momentum like a well-oiled machine. As conversations flowed, Marjorie caught snippets of laughter, the air thick with camaraderie. Faces shone in the light, and she cherished the moments, each word, each laugh promising change. Yet, just beyond this beautiful tapestry of hope, uncertainty coiled in its shadows. What do we do about funding? A voice drifted from the back, dragging the energy down momentarily. We don't have a budget established yet, and that needs to be addressed right away. It was Greg again, with a persistence that threatened to darken the mood. Those words clashed with the joy, and Marjorie's heart sank. We'll figure that out too, she said, her voice firmer this time. If we can bring everyone together, we'll find ways to make this happen. We need to believe in ourselves. As discussion continued, her mind raced ahead, mapping out challenges they would need to tackle. Her heart ached thinking about their veterans, their stories, their struggles. She could not let their voices fade in the din of doubt. Just then, Sarah gripped her hand tightly, pulling Marjorie back to the moment. Hey, you're doing great. One step at a time, remember? Marjorie smiled back, gratitude blooming within her. Thanks, Sarah. I needed that. Yet beneath the surface of her appreciation, Doubts writhed. Was she really equipped to lead this charge? What if her vision crumbled under pressure? As the meeting drew to a close, the clock ticking towards the evening rush, Marjorie felt a wave of exhilaration and anxiety blend in her chest. They were taking steps forward, but what waited down the path? Next steps, everyone. She called out, striving to keep the momentum alive. Let us meet again next week to dive deeper into our plans. As the crowd began to disperse, a familiar figure lingered at the back. Greg, arms crossed, a frown etched into his brow. Marjorie met his gaze, fear and defiance battling within her. Could he possibly see something she missed? Was there a flaw in her approach? Before she could ponder further, he stepped forward. We need to talk, he stated bluntly, tone serious. Facing him, Marjorie's heart raced again. What was he about to unveil? Would it bring clarity, or be another weight on her shoulders? She took a deep breath, ready for whatever lay ahead. All right, I'm listening. Greg's eyes narrowed, frustration etching lines around his mouth. You need to see the situation for what it is, Marjorie, he said, his voice low. This isn't just about goodwill or making pretty proposals. It's about hard facts. You're diving into this ambitious project with only half the information. Marjorie felt her pulse quicken. This wasn't the first time Greg had injected his skepticism into this initiative. There was a hint of defeat in her gut, but she couldn't let it wash over her. What do you mean? She pressed, trying to keep her tone steady despite the rise of doubt. He hesitated, tapping a finger against his crossed arms purposefully. I've seen these kinds of projects fail, and I don't want to see you waste your energy on something that might fall apart before it even gets off the ground. What do you suggest then? That we just give up before we even start? Marjorie snapped, the defensiveness slipping into her voice. I'm saying we need a realistic approach, Greg replied, his tone neutral but firm. Let us draft a viable plan complete with funding sources. I want to help, I really do, but we have to consider every angle. Marjorie took a step back, folding her arms defensively. She could feel the warmth of the room begin to fade, the chatter of her team dwindling as they dispersed. I thought we were all on the same page. I thought we agreed to take a risk together. Not every risk is worth taking, Greg countered. Think of the veterans. If this falls through, what then? We'll have let them down. A weight settled on her chest. He was right. They weren't just taking on another community project. They were stepping into the lives of those who had already faced battles far greater than her own. But did he really believe they could come together? Or did he just want to sabotage what she had built? Is that what you want? To keep them from getting help? She retorted, the sting of betrayal lacing her words. No, of course not. His brow furrowed deeper. I want to make sure we're successful. And sustainable. I'm not trying to tear you down, Marjorie. I just want to give this everything we have without it crashing around us. The defensiveness began to ebb. She could see he wasn't aggressively opposed. He just wanted them to be prepared. All right, she finally conceded, though her voice was laced with frustration. Let us talk specifics. Over the next few minutes, they fleshed out a preliminary outline for a budget, funding opportunities, and possible partnerships. Greg's analytical approach was exhausting, and yet it opened her eyes to what they truly needed. By the time they wrapped up, a tentative truce had formed between them. See, was that so bad? Greg tried to inject some humor, but it fell flat in the thick air. No, not with you, Marjorie admitted, softening. But I need you to believe in this. We all need to believe. If we're going to do this, let us do it with hope. He nodded but kept his arms crossed. That was the Greg she had always known, cautious but supportive in his own way. As she gathered her things, a flicker of determination ignited within her again. She wouldn't let the unease trap her. They had taken the first step, and she would turn the doubts into fuel. Next week, Marjorie called out as the meeting truly came to an end. Bring your ideas. Let us really dig into this. As she turned to leave, the anticipation of what awaited them loomed larger than the shadows of doubt. Just ahead, a challenge awaited, a challenge she knew they would face together, but also one wrapped in uncertainty. The evening sun cast long shadows on the sidewalk as she stepped outside, but a feeling of resolve clung to her, pushing her onward. Suddenly, a voice broke her reverie. Marjorie. It was Sarah rushing to catch up. I heard you and Greg earlier. It sounded intense. Everything okay? Marjorie hesitated. Yeah, we're okay. Just working things out. Good, because I might have something that could help with funding, Sarah said, excitement radiating from her. A connection to an organization looking to support community projects. Think it could help? Marjorie's heart raced at the spark of hope. Could they actually have a breakthrough? That could change everything. As she felt the dawn of possibility rise, a whisper of doubt lingered. Would it be enough to bridge the gap she feared? Let us talk, she urged, the two of them hurrying down the sidewalk, determination buzzing in the air around them. But what secrets lurked behind the organization's intentions, and would they really have the support they so desperately needed? They found a quiet cafe a few blocks away, its cozy atmosphere inviting them in. The gentle hum of conversation filled the space while the aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirled around them. Marjorie quickly dismissed her fears, focusing instead on the possibilities Sarah seemed to offer. What do you know about this organization? Marjorie asked, settling into a small wooden chair, her heart a mix of eagerness and uncertainty. Sarah leaned in, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. They're local but have a national presence. They're passionate about helping veterans just like us. I spoke to someone at a charity event last month. They mentioned granting opportunities for projects aimed at community support. Could really align with our goals. Marjorie's fingers tapped anxiously against the table. It sounds promising, but we need more than just a conversation. We need a solid pitch that shows we understand their values. This isn't just about funding. It's about community impact. Exactly, Sarah nodded, her enthusiasm unwavering. We can highlight the veterans' need and how our plan can fill that gap. We can showcase our vision and back it up with real numbers. Marjorie took a deep breath, envisioning a compelling presentation. What if we create a detailed proposal that outlines our goals and connects with their mission? Something impactful that they can't ignore? Great idea. We can include testimonials, success stories from similar projects, and visualize our goals. They want to invest in something they believe in, something that will spark change. They want to see passion. As they brainstormed, their imaginations intertwined, fueling each other's hope. Ideas flowed like coffee, rich and invigorating. Marjorie felt the weight lifting, the shadows swallowing her doubts. Suddenly, Sarah paused mid-sentence, her eyes darting to the entrance. Oh no. Marjorie looked back to see Greg walk in, his face a mixture of concern and curiosity. Can I join? He asked, sliding into a chair across from them. Sure, Marjorie responded, masking her surprise. She was still trying to reconcile their earlier conversation. Just thought I'd check in, he said, trying to sound casual, but the tension still hung in the air. I overheard you talking about the funding opportunity. Is it legit? Sarah jumped at the chance to share their excitement. Yes. We were just discussing how we could tailor our proposal to match their interests. It could be our best chance. Greg's brow furrowed, skepticism making his eyes sharp once more. It's good, but we need to be careful. Have you seen any of their projects? What if they come with strings attached? Marjorie felt a swell of frustration rising again, but she pushed it aside. This was about more than their earlier disagreement now. Maybe we should research them together, she suggested. If we're going to make this work, we need to be united, not divided. He studied her for a moment, then sighed, his demeanor easing. Okay, but let me help. I can dig into their past projects and see which ones worked. We have to make this successful, not just wishful thinking. Marjorie exchanged glances with Sarah, feeling hope weave amongst their uncertainties again. This could be it. This could bring new life to our project, she said, a tremor of excitement in her voice. In that moment, a small flicker of unity ignited between the three of them, and Marjorie thought about the impact they could make together. If they all put their minds together with trust and transparency, they could turn their shared vision into reality. But just as the hope ballooned, a message buzzed on Marjorie's phone, pulling her focus. It was an email notification from an unexpected source, an anonymous tip about the organization. Her heart raced again. What did that mean? Guys, I think we might need to take a closer look at what we're really getting into, she said, anxiety knotted in her stomach. What had the tipster revealed? Would it jeopardize everything they had built? With unanswered questions swirling in her mind, she could only wonder what other challenges lay ahead on this unpredictable journey. Marjorie stared at the screen, her heartbeat thundering in her ears as she tried to wrap her mind around what she had just read. The email's subject line had screamed urgency, catching her attention immediately. "Who is it from?" Greg asked, leaning closer. The tension in their circle thickened as curiosity sparked between them. "It says it's anonymous," Marjorie replied, the words sticking in her throat. "But they mentioned something about the organization." "Say," she hesitated, the weight of uncertainty making her pause. "They say it may not be what it seems." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her voice low, as if afraid to disturb the fragile hope they had built only moments before. "Let me read it," Greg urged, his brow furrowing with concern. He gently reached for her phone and Marjorie, still too stunned to react, handed it over. As he scanned the words, his expression shifted from confusion to alarm. This is serious," he said, his eyes widening. "They claim the organization has ties to a political agenda that exploits veterans' issues for profit. It could be a front instead of a genuine charity." Marjorie felt her stomach drop. "No, that can't be true. I mean, why would anyone do that?" The thought made her nauseous. The excitement from earlier diminished, replaced by a suffocating fear of betrayal. "It happens more often than you think," Greg replied, sounding grim. "It's like a parasite feeding on people's hope." He handed the phone back to Marjorie, who felt the heaviness of each word weigh down on her spirit. Sarah, ever pragmatic, had turned serious. "We will need to verify this. If there are red flags, we can't get involved." Marjorie nodded slowly, her resolve hardening again. "Let us not jump to conclusions just yet. We can't back down because of a tip. We need to dig deeper." "What is our first move?" Greg asked, shifting in his chair, already ready to help. "Research," Marjorie replied decisively, her mind racing with possibilities. "We need to find out everything we can about their past projects, the people behind it, and any reviews or reports related to their practices. If we're going to pursue this, we need to go all in." As they began brainstorming their plan of action, Marjorie felt a renewed sense of purpose. Despite the fear hovering like a storm cloud over them, a spark of determination ignited within her. They could expose the truth, they could protect their project and their veterans. "Let us head to the library," she suggested, energized by the prospect of uncovering the truth. "They usually have good records on organizations like this. We can find public filings, reports, and even news articles." "Good call," Sarah said, visibly energized as well. "Let us not waste time. Who knows what we'll discover?" Just as they were about to gather their things, Marjorie's phone buzzed again, making her jump. Another email, this time from an unknown contact but not anonymous. "Guys, you need to see this," she breathed, her fingers trembling as she opened the message. Her heart dropped as she read the lines. The email contained alarming allegations about the organization, but also included names people she recognized from the charity event Sarah had mentioned. "What if they are involved?" Greg whispered, almost to himself. Marjorie's mind raced. "What if we're not just digging into research? What if we're unearthing something much bigger than any of us imagined?" The gravity of their discovery sank in, and she could sense the tension rising again. The challenges before them began to loom larger. Would they find the truth hidden behind the facade? Or would they plunge deeper into a web of deception, jeopardizing everything they had fought for? Marjorie's breath hitched in her throat as she stared at the screen, the weight of the new email settling heavily on her shoulders. Names, connections, and implications buzzed like angry bees in her mind. She had expected research, a search for clarity, not this unsettling revelation that was unraveling right before her eyes. "Can you believe this? We need to figure out what this means," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Greg leaned in closer, his brow knitted with concern as he began typing the names into his phone's search bar. Sarah pulled the chair closer and crossed her arms tightly. "Those names. If they're involved, that changes everything. It's not just about the project anymore, it's about the integrity of this whole organization." "Exactly," Marjorie added, gripping the edge of the table as if it would anchor her spinning thoughts. "If any of this is true, then we could expose a system that hurts those it claims to help. But how deep does this go?" Greg's search returned results almost instantly. "Look at this," he said, nodding toward the screen. "There are news articles referencing some of these individuals. It seems they've been affiliated with other charities before, and not all of them have ended well." A chill swept through the group. Marjorie felt it creep along her spine as she stared at the images of smiling faces that now felt tainted. What if we're next on that list? Marjorie mused aloud, her voice shaking. What if they turn against us? Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, Marjorie's phone rang, its shrill chime slicing through the tension like a knife. Startled, Marjorie glanced down at the screen. It was an unknown number. A moment of hesitation lingered before she swiped to answer. Hello? Her voice trembled, an odd mix of hope and dread filling the air around her. Marjorie? A distorted voice crackled from the other end. You need to listen to me. You're in over your head. The organization static erupted for a moment, and then the voice returned, urgent and frantic. Don't trust everyone. Not even your friends. Her heart began to race again. Who is this? What do you know? She demanded, clenching the phone tightly as if that would somehow stabilize the storm brewing within her. Just people who care. The voice replied cryptically before abruptly hanging up. Silence enveloped the group, heavy and profound. Marjorie's heart pounded in her chest. She exchanged glances with Greg and Sarah, confusion and fear reflected in their eyes. Did that just happen? Sarah's brows furrowed, her voice barely a whisper. Yeah, it did, Marjorie replied, her mind racing. But what does it mean? Who was that and what do they know? Greg ran a hand through his hair, his face pale. We need to take this seriously. If there's someone out there protecting us, we should figure out why. Maybe we have allies we don't know about. Or enemies, Marjorie added, the tension in the room thickening again. This could put us at risk, but at the same time it could be our chance to dig even deeper. Each word hung heavy in the air, the uncertainty of their situation reeling through all of them. Were they on the right path to revelation, or walking straight into a trap laid for them? The library felt like a beacon in the dark. Yet as they prepared to leave, Marjorie couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were being watched. What happens if we push? She thought aloud, stepping into the cool air outside. What if we succeed and unravel everything? Will we be safe? Who knows, Greg replied quietly. But we must find out. Whatever it is, we're doing this together. As they walked toward the library, Marjorie felt that familiar flicker of determination reignite. But right then her phone buzzed again, another message. She hesitated, the fear reminding her of what awaited behind those digital gates. Maybe it's the next step. But should we really look? Their eyes met as the weight of that question loomed larger than before. Would they uncover solace or insert themselves deeper into danger? As they stood outside the library, the world around them buzzed with life. People hurried past, their laughter and chatter a stark contrast to the frantic energy swirling in Marjorie's mind. She felt a mix of urgency and trepidation as she finally turned her attention to the message flashing on her phone. Are you going to check it? Greg asked, his eyes darting from Marjorie's phone to her face. With a deep breath, she opened the message. It was another unknown number, but the content was chilling. You aren't safe. Trust no one. Meet me at the park 7 p.m. Come alone. Her palms tingled with dread. It's a meeting request. They want to meet in the park, she said, her voice barely a murmur, as if speaking too loudly could shatter the fragile veil of their plans. Alone? Sarah asked, incredulous. That's too risky. You can't go by yourself. Marjorie bit her lip, weighing her options. The potential for answers, for clarity, was powerful against the fear that churned in her stomach. But what if they know something that could help us? Something that could protect us? Greg raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched on his face. Or something that puts you directly in harm's way. We need a plan. Do we trust each other or not? Marjorie challenged, her heart racing with a mix of courage and desperation. If I go, I can just hear them out. If it's a trap, then I'll signal you both. You can watch from a distance. But Sarah started, but Marjorie interrupted, feeling the determination sharpen within her. I need to do this. If there's a chance to turn the tide, I have to take it. The silence that followed was heavy. Greg glanced at Sarah, who met his gaze, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Fine, Greg said finally, though his tone carried reluctance. But we stay close and we don't leave you alone if anything feels off. We back you up. Agreed? Agreed, Marjorie nodded, relief flooding her senses. They were in this together after all. As night fell, the air grew cooler. Marjorie wrapped her arms around herself for warmth, anxiety clawing at her as she approached the park. Shadows danced beneath the trees, the sound of rustling leaves accentuating the eerie atmosphere. She spotted a lone figure under a street lamp, their features obscured by the dim light. When she stepped closer, her pulse quickened. "I'm here," she announced, her voice steady despite the nerves twisting in her stomach. The figure shifted, revealing a man with a guarded expression. "You need to be careful," he said, his voice low as if the very air around them might be listening. "You're in way over your head." Marjorie's gut tightened. "What do you know? Who are you?" "I know about the organization. I've seen what they do." "They're not what they seem," he replied, glancing around paranoidly. "You need to trust me, I'm trying to help." Questions flooded Marjorie's mind. Was he an ally or posing as one? Just as she opened her mouth to respond, the sound of footsteps broke through the silence. Panic surged through her. "Greg. Sarah." She called out instinctively, her voice cracking under pressure. The man's eyes widened. "You shouldn't have brought anyone. They could be watching." In that moment, the reality of her choices crashed over her. Had she put everyone at risk? As she turned to find her friends rushing into view, dread washed over her. "We have to go. Now," Greg shouted, his eyes glancing nervously around. Marjorie's heart pounded as she recognized the fear mirrored in her friends' expressions. They were entangled in something much larger than they'd ever anticipated, and the stakes were far too high. "What's going on?" she demanded, torn between the warning of the stranger and the urgency in Greg's voice. "We have to make our move before it's too late," Greg replied, pulling her by the elbow. Marjorie's breath quickened with an adrenaline rush. The man's plea echoed in her mind. Could they really trust anyone? And as they ran towards safety, one question burned fiercely within her. Was this the beginning of their liberation or the catalyst for their doom? With uncertainty looming like dark clouds above them, their next steps would determine everything. Marjorie's heart raced as they darted away from the park, fear propelling her, instincts roaring in her ears. The man's warnings echoed relentlessly in her mind, mixing with the relentless pounding of her pulse. "Where are we going?" Sarah gasped, trying to keep pace with the frenzy of their flight. "Anywhere but here," Marjorie replied, glancing back to see if anyone followed. Shadows loomed larger, and the night felt heavier, as if the town itself conspired against them. Her feet moved faster, powered by the adrenaline coursing through her veins. They reached the diner, a familiar haven full of warmth and laughter, now tinged with danger. Marjorie pushed through the door, breathless, and let her gaze sweep across the empty booths, the cheerful jukebox casting muted light across the space where dreams had flourished. Yet tonight, even the bright neon seemed dimmed by the cloud of fear that hung over them. "Okay, we need to talk," Greg insisted, leading them to a secluded corner booth, his expression serious. Marjorie scooted into the seat, wringing her hands, still haunted by the stranger's warning. What if he was right? She whispered, her voice quaking. What if this organization truly is a trap? What if we're just pawns in a bigger game? "We can't think like that," Greg reassured her, his tone firm yet compassionate. "We need to focus on how to expose the truth together. But we can't do it recklessly. We need to gather evidence and verify those claims before we make any moves. That means digging deeper." Marjorie felt a flicker of hope rekindle within her. "You're right. This is still our chance to turn the tide for those veterans. We owe it to them." She looked to Sarah, who was nodding vigorously, her eyes filled with determination. "I'll dig into the funding and review the names from those emails," Sarah offered. "We need to see if there are patterns or connections that lead somewhere. And I'll reach out to some contacts I have at other nonprofits," Greg added. "There are people who know the landscape better than we do. They might have intel we need." Marjorie nodded, the fear slowly dissipating, replaced by a sense of unity forging among them. "Let's move cautiously. We can't afford to tip them off about us investigating. This time we play it smart." As they exchanged ideas, the scattered pieces of their plan began to take shape. They wrapped their heads around database searches, potential contacts within similar organizations, and ways to protect their information. Marjorie felt buoyed by the surge of purpose, no longer alone in this fight. She had a team who believed in their cause. On the outside the night deepened, but inside Marjorie's heart, a flame ignited. She faced down judgment and fear before, and there was no going back now. Later that night, holding on to her resolve, she glanced around the empty diner. For the first time, she felt she wasn't only fighting for a house. They were standing for something larger, a mission to reclaim their community and restore hope for those who had once sacrificed so much. Meanwhile, the initial thrill of their plan began to color the air with anticipation. Days turned into sleepless nights as they strategized, researching the organization, pinpointing its weaknesses, and weaving their collective efforts into a solid plan of action. As they poured coffees and exchanged stories, Marjorie couldn't help but feel lighter. One evening, they finally connected with a former employee of the organization who provided them with insider knowledge. "They're more interested in profit than helping people," she said, her voice colored with urgency. "You need to tread carefully. They have a network that's not easily broken." As the truth unfolded before them like a path illuminated by flickering lanterns, Marjorie breathed easier, empowered by knowledge and a united purpose. They gathered the facts, fighting a battle not only for their vision but for the spirit of the town. Finally, the day arrived when they felt ready to confront the organization. Marjorie stood at the forefront, her heartbeat steady and assured they had everything in place. The meeting loomed ahead, a definitive moment that would determine their fate and the future of the Veterans Project. "We're ready?" Greg queried, determination blazing in his eyes as they prepared to step into the center of inquiry. "With every ounce of belief we have," Marjorie replied, drawing strength from her team. As the doors swung open, she could feel the pulse of history thrumming through her veins. Today wouldn't simply be the culmination of their hard work, but a declaration that their dreams were invincible against the tide of greed. They marched forward together, resolute, ready to unveil the truth and reclaim their future. This is the moment they had fought for, the moment those veterans' voices could be restored, reminding everyone of the heart within their community. Today would be a turning point not just for the house, but for everyone who believed in hope and resilience. And as they stepped into that room, a wave of courage swept through Marjorie, leading her forward. Together she whispered, an affirmation woven deep into her heart, "We will prevail." Now do not wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will leave you inspired. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and keep these transformations coming. I want to hear your thoughts. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't forget to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who desperately need to witness this powerful transformation. You need to show your support and let us spark that change together.